After a heartbreaking loss, this little girl's life took an amazing turn when a millionaire stepped into her world. The air was crisp on that fateful autumn morning, heavy with the scent of decaying leaves and memories. 10-year-old Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the creaking farmhouse that had been filled with her grandmother's warmth and laughter. But today, desolation seeped into every corner, leaving a chilling void that echoed her grandmother's absence. She clutched the frayed teddy bear her grandmother used to cuddle her with during frightening storms, her fingers trembling as she allowed her eyes to wander to the photo of her grandmother atop the mantel. "Why did it have to be you?" she whispered, afraid of the vacancy that shadowed her heart. Alone. The word was a tidal wave crashing down on her tiny frame. With the old farmhouse creaking under the weight of unwritten histories and mounting debts, she felt like a threadbare blanket on the brink of unraveling. As she tiptoed through the rooms, remnants of happiness surrounded her, the faded wallpaper, the rocking chair that once swayed gently while her grandmother read timeless tales, and the untouched kitchen that had seen so many festive gatherings. Now, lonely and forgotten, it mirrored Emma's grief, a love that lingered but was cruelly out of reach. With bills piled high and strangers knocking on the door demanding payment, Emma wrestled with the crushing reality that nobody was coming to rescue her. She felt like a lone tree in a raging storm, roots loosening in the storm of whispers from the townsfolk. Just a little orphan, clinging to old memories, they'd say. She steeled herself against the fear, but it gnawed within her. Was it selfish to hope for the impossible? Encouraging thoughts of escape tumbled through her mind, trying to distract from the pit of loneliness and despair. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. No sooner had she wordlessly made a plan to search for a job than fate intervened. As she struggled to balance the weight of grocery bags, the chill in the air stung her cheeks, and she felt each passerby's judgment like ice-cold fingers against her skin. That's when Marcus appeared, a man well-dressed and seemingly untouched by the discomfort surrounding her. His gaze hung on her for a moment before he stepped forward, breaking through her bubble of despair. The initial spark of friendship blossomed into something deeper. With unease, was she allowed to let someone else in? As they began working together to breathe life back into the farmhouse, the pressure mounted with every hammer stroke. Anxiety wrapped around her heart like a noose, questioning if she would ruin this fragile bond or if she could finally have the connection she craved. Just as she dared to believe, whispers from the town grew louder, turning kindness into suspicion, and friendship into an insurmountable divide. Emma raced to find the courage within her, but could a little girl, profoundly alone, break barriers that had stood for generations? The weight of the world pressed down, and every dream felt shattered in the grim shadow of judgment. As her hope wavered, the past loomed larger, the surprising connection to Marcus tied to her family unraveling in the background, echoing the question: could love truly transcend the depths of class? Just as the walls that held her up began to tremble, an unexpected revelation lay waiting to be uncovered, holding the promise of hope or the threat of everything being taken away. Emma's heart raced as she stood on the threshold of her grandmother's once lively kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window casting a warm glow on the faded linoleum. It felt like a last bastion against the growing despair that threatened to engulf her. As she entered, the musty air wrapped around her tightly, but the memories started to stir, edging her toward action. She knew the bills had to be paid, the farmhouse needed repairs. It required more than just her steadfast hope. Determined to find a way out of her entrapment, Emma gathered her thoughts, scouring the kitchen for inspiration. The shadows of the past paired with her chaotic thoughts. She found a chipped notepad and began jotting down ideas for ways to earn money. Her handwriting, shaky at first, gradually gained confidence. Dogs in the neighborhood needed walking, chores could be offered, and perhaps a small baking venture selling cookies and treats could entice passers-by. Each idea felt like a fragile tether linking her to a future beyond grief and loneliness. Days passed as she put her plan into motion. With Marcus by her side, his presence becoming a source of steady support, she started to knock on doors, timidly offering her services. Each interaction felt like a tiny triumph, a spark of pride igniting the embers of her hope. The initial hush of disbelief from neighbors turned to tentative smiles as they began accepting her offers. However, every success was undercut by whispers in the background, nudging her doubts further into the forefront of her mind. "Doesn't that man have better things to do than help a little girl?" one neighbor murmured, making Emma's stomach churn with unease. Each time she heard their voices, a shroud of shame encased her efforts. Were they right? Was she just a pitiful charity case? Marcus, perceptive to her growing turmoil, reminded her that she was taking steps toward independence, inching away from the ghosts of the past. As her venture began to take root, Emma found herself drawn into deeper conversations with Marcus. He told stories of his own childhood, sober reflections of feeling lost and searching for meaning. In his vulnerability, she found her own mirrored back at her, a connection that felt genuine and strong, yet filled her with apprehension. Was this momentary bond just a bridge over shared suffering or something destined to crumble under the weight of societal scrutiny? With every interaction they shared, Emma felt her emotional landscape shift. She learned to confront her insecurities, questioning if she allowed herself to bond with Marcus beyond friendship. The stakes felt monumental, exposing her scars before someone who could retreat at any sign of vulnerability. And still, as winter approached, a heavy blanket of anxiety descended upon her, pressing against her chest with each footstep down the dirt road. She had to confront her fears. Would this venture break her spirit or forge her resilience? The clock ticked with a relentless reminder, weaving time into a palpable tension that hung between her aspirations and the ever-present whispers. With every step taken toward becoming self-sufficient, she was also racing against the echoes of doubt. Just as she readied herself to open new doors, a troubling confrontation lay just ahead, a choice she had to make that could lead to a turning point: embracing the unknown or remaining shackled to her past uncertainties. Would she summon the courage to embrace the potential of her budding friendship with Marcus, or would the fear of judgment suffocate the opportunity for something more meaningful? As she stood on the cusp of decision, anticipation gnawed at her resolve, and she could almost hear the words echoing back. The time had come to face them. Emma stood at the threshold of her decision, grappling with the lingering whispers and her emotions swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. In that moment, she felt the weight of potential heavy, binding, yet also liberating. It was a duality that had become her companion in the past weeks. Every step forward had brought the promise of independence while simultaneously unearthing her carefully buried vulnerabilities. As the chill of winter crept closer, she felt the urgency of her situation deepen. Repairs on the farmhouse loomed large, and the bills awaited relentless attention. But there was more than that. She craved a sense of belonging, a tie to something greater than her isolation. She looked to Marcus, grounding and steady, who had become an unexpected anchor amidst her turbulent sea of self-doubt. His support had opened pathways in her mind. She needed to take a leap and decide who she wanted to be. Emma felt her stomach knot at the thought of that leap. Confronting the neighbors was one thing, but what if they were right? What if she was a burden? She pulled herself back. No. She couldn't afford to feed those thoughts. In fact, she had taken the first steps toward self-sufficiency, and that had to count for something. One evening, as they prepared to bake for the community bake sale, Marcus leaned against the counter, flour dusting his jeans. "What's on your mind?" he asked, catching her drifting gaze. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just playing pretend. What if it's all for nothing?" The words tumbled out before she could catch them. "Pretend?" He raised an eyebrow. "Emma, you are doing something that most people only talk about. You're acting. But what if I fail?" The knot tightened, and anxiety surged. "Failure is part of growth. You're not the same girl who stood in this kitchen weeks ago. You're evolving, pushing through barriers." His encouragement bathed her in warmth, but the cold shadow of doubt cast over her heart shifted ever so slightly. "I just fear that if I start thinking of this as something real, I might get hurt. Or worse, I could lose it all, like I lost." The unfinished thought hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Marcus stepped closer, his eyes firm, yet soft. You've already lost so much. How much more could you truly be risking? What would it cost to try? Questions sliced through her insecurities. Did she dare risk more than she already had? Seeking a deeper relationship with Marcus that could lead to new heights, or simply embracing her entrepreneurial journey, everything now hung in a precarious balance that demanded her commitment. A sudden realization washed over her: she had grown resilient through her grief, forming a foundation made of both strength and fragility. Just then, the oven timer chimed like a clarion call. Emma could no longer linger on the precipice. "Let us do this," she declared, her voice laced with newfound determination. The small affirmation meant the world to her, a pledge to push through the fear resonating within her. As they rolled out the dough, the rhythm became a meditation. Each cut, each sprinkle of sugar brought clarity. Emma observed the transformation not just of ingredients but of herself, molding into someone who welcomed the uncertainties of life. With the smell of cookies filling the kitchen, Emma resolved to face the whispers head-on and embrace the challenges ahead, yet she knew that soon enough she'd be confronted with someone whose judgment could unravel her hard-won peace: Mrs. Hargrove, the local matriarch with an opinion on everyone's business. Emma felt a tightness in her chest at the thought. The time for confrontation was nearing, and she had to prepare. Could she harness the courage built from her recent wins to stand her ground when the moment arrived? The answer remained just out of reach, a question tantalizingly close, whispering, the time was not just for facing her neighbors but for defining who she intended to become. Emma woke the next morning, the sun's reluctant rays creeping through the kitchen window, illuminating the flour-dusted counters. Despite the momentary warmth, a chill weathered deep within her. The bake sale was a few days away, and she could still feel the weight of that looming confrontation with Mrs. Hargrove. But today was different. Today could set the tone for everything. While Marcus enjoyed his morning coffee, she busied herself with preparations. With each motion, the way she whisked the eggs, the precision of each ingredient measured, Emma felt her resolve crystallizing. Perhaps the act of baking was more than mere preparation, it was alchemy. It was transforming doubt into certainty, chaos into structure. As she worked, she replayed Marcus's words in her mind. "You're not the same girl who stood in this kitchen weeks ago." Had she really changed that much? A part of her continued to grapple with the notion of self-worth, tangled in fear and anxiety. As she arranged the cookies on a cooling rack, a nagging thought trickled in: was she truly ready to face not just the public, but her own insecurities? Hours later, she found herself at the local market, gathering supplies for the sale. The bell above the door jingled, and a familiar face peered at her from behind the counter. It was Joan, the market owner, a woman who had built her reputation on baking as much as on her no-nonsense approach to customers. "Emma," Joan greeted, her brow arching slightly. "I heard you're entering the bake sale. That's a bold move. You sure about this?" The question hung heavy, uninvited. Instead of succumbing to the pressure, Emma decided to articulate her intentions. "Yes, I'm sure. I want to be part of the community, you know. I've been trying to find my own way." Her voice mirrored the confidence she was trying to foster inside. "Finding your way is one thing," Joan replied, scrutinizing her as if testing her resolve. "But are you ready for the opinions that come with it? Not everyone will support you, especially Mrs. Hargrove." Feeling a ripple of apprehension, Emma pressed her lips together. Was she really prepared to handle the opinions of others? She searched Joan's eyes for encouragement but gleaned only skepticism. "I think facing them will be part of the journey," she finally said. With that declaration, a shift occurred within her. Emma recognized that she was not just a passive player in this narrative, she was the writer, the architect of her own story, forging connections as much within herself as outwardly in her surroundings. The idea both frightened and fueled her, igniting a fire within that she hadn't known existed since her arrival in this town. The days ticked by and Emma meticulously prepared for the bake sale. Each muffin she crafted became a piece of herself infused with purpose. She took pride in her work as the community buzzed with whispers regarding her brewing presence, amidst this preparation throbbed the looming tension of Tuesday's confrontation. Emma rehearsed the words she'd say to Mrs. Hargrove. "You don't get to define me," she would argue, not just for herself but for every doubt ever cast on her aspirations. One evening, as Marcus joined her in the kitchen, she confided, "I'm afraid she'll see me as weak." Marcus, ever steadfast, replied, "Strength is not the absence of fear. It's the drive to push forward despite it." Fingers meeting her countertop, Emma grasped the truth in his words. Perhaps her newfound determination was telling her something vital. This confrontation wasn't merely about Mrs. Hargrove, it was her awakening. The bake sale would be a culmination of her efforts, a proving ground. But as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, uncertainty clouded her mind. What kind of storm awaited her there? And just like that, Emma caught a glimpse of an impending storm, a realization that perhaps Mrs. Hargrove wouldn't just threaten her sense of belonging but might also reveal deeper truths about herself she'd neglected this entire time. The moment of truth was approaching, and with each passing second, she felt the audience of her own life waiting to see if she would falter or if she would finally commit to the person she aspired to be. Could she truly break free and define her own worth regardless of what others thought? The next chapter loomed with unanswered questions. What domino effect would the bake sale trigger? And what awaited her when she finally confronted Mrs. Hargrove? The day of the bake sale arrived, shrouded in an electric current of anticipation that hummed in Emma's veins. As she filled her wicker basket with meticulously arranged treats, each one a reflection of her journey, her heart thudded a relentless rhythm, the kind that mingled exhilaration with dread. This was her moment to shine. Yet shadows of doubt lingered, testing her newly forged resolve. The morning was crisp, with a hint of autumn in the air, reflecting the vibrancy of the season. She stood before the mirror, adjusting her apron, a talisman of sorts that marked her readiness. Marcus had left for his morning run, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The kitchen felt quieter than usual, amplifying the echo of her racing heartbeat. As she descended the porch stairs, determination propelled her forward. The neighborhood buzzed with families setting up their stalls, laughter intertwining with the scent of fresh-baked goods. Emma forced a smile. She could play the part, but the weight of Mrs. Hargrove's anticipated presence loomed like a storm cloud overhead. When she reached the community park, the atmosphere was festive, yet every cheer felt like a prelude to an inner battle she was preparing to face. Watching the other participants, she noticed the confidence radiating from their smiles. Yet beneath that surface, she sensed stories of their own, some perhaps struggling with fear just like she was. As Emma arranged her table, a shadow fell across her setup. She looked up to find Mrs. Hargrove standing there, arms crossed, her expression a mix of disdain and curiosity. Emma's stomach tightened, as the weight of expectation and judgment flooded in. This was at the turning point. "Are you really going to put these out for people to see?" Mrs. Hargrove sneered lightly, scanning the colorful display of cookies and muffins. Emma's hands trembled slightly. "Why not?" "They're made with care," Emma replied, her voice wavering under the scrutiny. "Care doesn't amount to skill, dear." "You're in over your head," Mrs. Hargrove stated, her tone condescending. "Some people are simply meant to bake on their own, not for a crowd." A loop of doubt struck Emma all at once, a symphony of self-criticism drowning out the confidence she had painstakingly built. But within that chaos emerged a flicker of realization. This wasn't about Mrs. Hargrove's opinion but rather her own perception of value. Was she going to allow someone else to dictate her worth? No, Emma thought fiercely, taking a breath to steady herself. "I've worked too hard for this." "You may see it that way," she replied, finding strength from deep within, "but what matters to me is the joy that comes from sharing what I love." She held her ground, resisting the urge to look away, to retreat into the comfort of self-doubt. Surprise flickered across Mrs. Hargrove's stern demeanor, a momentary crack in her facade. Emma's heart surged. She was pushing through, defining her own narrative. This wasn't just a bake sale, it was a declaration of her identity. With the community members beginning to gather, curiosity swelling around her stall, Emma set her sights forward. What she had produced wasn't just about flavor, it was about connection. Each pastry carried her journey, her resilience, and her heart. She noticed the glimmers of interest that were gravitating toward her table, igniting a flicker of hope in her chest. As she began to engage with eager customers, sharing her story over every sweet creation, a warmth stretched through her. Each positive interaction chipped away at the insecurities that had accompanied her. The longer she embraced this new state of being, the more she recognized her own voice, one that could drown out negativity, but even as she thrived in the moment, the shadow of Mrs. Hargrove was ever present. What would happen later? Would the confrontation resume? And what would Emma discover about her potential beyond today? The fear didn't extinguish, it crackled within her as a reminder of the ongoing battle between self-doubt and empowerment. As she prepared another round of muffins for a fresh wave of eager buyers, she saw Mrs. Hargrove watching from afar, a contemplative expression replacing disdain. Did she sense something shifting? Emma couldn't tell, only that this day was far from over. The warmth of community began to envelop her, but the biggest question lingered: would she truly confront the storm? The sun arced higher in the sky, casting warm light on Emma's table as the minutes ticked by. With every customer, every glossy-eyed request for a taste, she felt herself shedding layers of doubt. She embraced each moment, her spirit buoyed by the laughter and connection sparking around her. The scent of vanilla and chocolate teamed together like an uplifting melody, representing what she had to offer: not just treats, but a piece of her heart. But just as she found her rhythm, she caught Mrs. Hargrove's eyes again. The older woman still lingered at a distance, arms folded, blending into the crowd like a storm cloud that refused to move on. Emma's earlier defiance flickered under the scrutiny, and a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Could one critical voice unravel the tapestry of confidence she had begun to weave? "Emma, could I get a box of those double chocolate muffins?" A sweet, eager voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Lucy, the neighborhood baker's daughter, eyes bright with delight. "Of course," Emma replied, feeling a rush of joy from the exchange. As she filled the box, Lucy's excitement stirred something deep within her, an awareness that she was not only sharing her passion but also inspiring others. A moment like this captured the essence of why she had pursued baking in the first place, and it reignited her resolve. "Thanks, Emma. You're the best," Lucy squeaked, dashing off, her exuberance infectious. Savoring the moment, Emma realized that acknowledgement of her work was more than merely selling a muffin. This was about feeding joy, creating memories, one pastry at a time. Each customer's smile became a shield against doubt, helping solidify her growing sense of self-worth. Yet, as the last of her muffins were devoured, that familiar knot began to tighten in her stomach again. The electric tension caused by Mrs. Hargrove's lingering presence remained unresolved, gnawing at the edges of her newfound courage. What would happen if she didn't confront this fear head-on? Would she let it fester, tainting what had turned out to be such a fulfilling day? Emma took a deep breath, feeling the summer air fill her lungs. There was no remedy that would soothe this nagging sense of impending confrontation except action. She looked around, noticing how the crowd began to shift, some departing with satisfied smiles, others stopping for just one more treat. It was her showpiece, the one that defined her spirit, her journey, sitting proudly in the center of her table. As if propelled by a force outside herself, Emma stepped away from her stall, weaving through the throng until she found herself standing before Mrs. Hargrove. The challenge was clear: a moment awaited her, one that could either affirm or unravel the progress she had made. "Mrs. Hargrove," Emma started, her voice steadier than she anticipated. "I wanted to thank you for pushing me today. If I hadn't faced your doubts, I wouldn't have discovered this strength. I've realized that the joy of baking isn't just in the end product but in the process itself. And if I can share that with others, then I've done my job." Mrs. Hargrove's brow furrowed slightly, and the once sharp edges of her demeanor softened, if only for a fleeting moment. "I see you're serious about this, Emma." "I am," she affirmed, her heart quickening, nerves still tinged with trepidation. Yet her posture felt different, steadier. This wasn't merely about confronting judgment, but accepting herself. But before she could elaborate, an unexpected clatter from the other end of the park drew their attention. A table draped in baked goods had toppled over, creating chaos as confectionaries scattered everywhere. Emma felt a jolt of concern, connection forming between her and the community in crisis. Would she leap into action, risking her confidence to assist, or would she retreat, allowing uncertainty to excel yet again? A decision loomed not only about the spilled treats but about the strength she had built throughout the day. Would she rise up, facing the chaos of both external events and her internal battles? Simultaneously, Emma's heart raced as the pastries tumbled across the grass, their delicate shells cracking, leaving trails of sweetness behind. Instinctively, she began moving toward the scattered desserts, drawn by a mix of empathy and urgency. Would it be enough to simply lend a hand, or would this moment reveal something deeper about her own resilience? Reaching the scene of chaos, Emma saw the distraught baker hurriedly trying to collect the fallen creations. He glanced up, his face betraying a mix of embarrassment and despair. Before she could second-guess herself, she knelt down beside him, her fingers busy scooping up the scattered treats. "Hey, let us get this cleaned up together," Emma said, her tone soothing yet firm, as she began sorting the untouched items from those that lay crushed. "Thank you. I didn't think," the baker began, but Emma interrupted. "It's just a mess. We can fix it," she insisted, the words flowing from her with surprising conviction. As they worked side by side, Emma felt an unexpected sense of camaraderie swell within her. The noise around them dulled, the laughter and chatter of the crowd fading into the background as she focused solely on the task at hand. In helping him, she found clarity. This was a manifestation of what baking had always meant to her, creativity intertwined with connection. Yet, as they gathered the remnants, Mrs. Hargrove's piercing gaze still lingered in the corner of Emma's mind, like an echo of self-doubt. How had she the audacity to believe in her own worth, especially in a world where criticism seemed so palpable? Pushing aside her thoughts momentarily, she decided to take the initiative. "Why don't we try something new?" she suggested, looking up with a playful grin. "Let us mix a few of these baked goods together. Maybe create a new treat right here, on the spot." The baker raised an eyebrow, surprised at the sudden shift in approach. "You think people would like that?" "Why not? It's a great way to engage everyone. We'll show them that even mishaps can be sweet," Emma replied, her enthusiasm fueling their next steps as she grabbed a plate of intact cookies and foundational crumbs. As people began to notice the fun unfolding, they drifted closer, curious about the improvised collaboration. Emma felt a rush of adrenaline, as if this moment was not just a remedy for spilled sweets but an opportunity to weave her creative spirit into the fabric of community, even if just for a moment. Handing out morsels of the new concoction, crispy cookie pieces embedded with chocolate cupcake crumbles, Emma embraced this delicious creation, wearing her own silly grin and inviting the crowd to join in sharing the process. With each smile given and moment shared, she became acutely aware of the warmth and joy radiating in response to her actions. This wasn't merely about her, it was a demonstration of collective joy amid chaos. Still, as praises showered upon her, Emma sensed a flicker of uncertainty waiting to resurface. Had she truly sparked something in herself, moving past the apprehension? Or was there more yet to confront, a deeper layer of her identity still seeking acknowledgement? Just then, a familiar voice cut through the joyful din. "Emma." It was Mrs. Hargrove. Emma felt the weight of the moment shift once more. This was the second encounter she hadn't sought, but it felt inevitable. "May I speak to you?" The sharpness of Mrs. Hargrove's tone contrasted starkly with the lightness of the crowd, bringing Emma's fragile resolve into sharp focus. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. This was her moment, a fork in the road that could either affirm her growth or undermine the happiness she had finally begun to cultivate. "Sure," she responded, her voice steadier than she felt inside. Yet, as she faced the personal storm that brewed before her, Emma understood that this time, she couldn't allow doubt to define her. The moment had come to face yet another challenge, one that could reveal just how far she had truly come in her journey. Emma turned to face Mrs. Hargrove, the undeniable authority figure whose judgments had felt like a weight upon her shoulders for far too long. As she braced herself for whatever might come next, a quiet strength blossomed within her, manifesting in her posture and focus. Gone was the young woman who cowered under the threat of criticism. Today, she would assert herself. "Emma, I must say I'm disappointed," Mrs. Hargrove began, her voice a crisp contrast to the warmth that had enveloped Emma moments before. "Your decision to engage so openly and impulsively during the demonstration reflects a lack of professionalism." The sharpness of the reprimand stung, but Emma caught herself in the tumult of her emotions. The baker's appreciative smile flashed through her mind, reminding her of the happiness she had just sparked. "With all due respect, I believe adaptability and creativity are important aspects of baking and life," Emma countered, finding her voice curiously steady. "That's one way to approach it," Mrs. Hargrove replied, her tone revealing the smallest flicker of surprise. "But what you need to understand is that not all changes are welcome. You could have ruined the entire presentation." At that moment, Emma felt the ground shift beneath her beliefs. It was clear that Mrs. Hargrove's intended critique was more about her adherence to structured traditionalism than the merit of creativity. Yet, Emma gleaned that perhaps there was a lesson in restraint, one that probed her decision-making processes. "I understand your perspective," she said carefully, "but in baking or in any art sometimes the most delicious results arise from unexpected moments. I think we both witnessed that today." There was a brief pause. Emma held her breath, feeling the gravity of her words as they lingered in the air between them. She was not just standing up for her choices but redefining her narrative, a step she had been fearful to take for so long. Mrs. Hargrove's expression softened slightly but remained guarded. "It's commendable that you're evolving, Emma. Just remember that evolution still requires a foundation. If you want to succeed, you must learn to balance innovation with your craft's core values," she advised, her tone betraying both care and caution. "Thank you for your guidance," Emma replied, fully accepting that criticism could coexist with compliments. She felt the weight of the last fragments of self-doubt start to lift. It was time for her to embrace both her drive for creativity and the mastery of her craft. Despite the tension of the conversation, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She had shown leadership in the face of chaos, could she do it again? "Mrs. Hargrove, I hope you'll let me show you what I've learned in my own way," Emma said, her voice warming with passion. "I want to challenge myself in ways I haven't before. Perhaps we could work together to create something that merges both our visions." Mrs. Hargrove regarded her for a moment, the weight of their discussion still lingering. "I must think about it," she replied at last, her expression contemplative. "But if you are serious about advancing your skills, I would recommend that you explore more structured approaches to baking. It could ground some of that spontaneity you wish to fuse into your art." As the conversation drew to a close, Emma felt both invigorated and uncertain. She could sense a shift in her own expectations of herself, but Mrs. Hargrove's words echoed in her mind: creativity flourished best within boundaries. She realized this was a turning point, one that inflated her purpose beyond mere baking. It was a deeper acknowledgement of her own potential to innovate while maintaining her craft. Stepping back from the confrontation, Emma felt the hum of excitement build within her. She considered what it would take to balance her unrestrained creativity with the discipline Mrs. Hargrove advocated. The challenge seemed daunting but also invigorating. With renewed resolve, Emma turned her gaze back to the people she'd engaged moments before. The laughter and camaraderie reminded her of her core desire to create connection through her baking. She could feel she was on the precipice of something significant, but in navigating this new path, what sacrifices would she have to make? What battles would lay ahead as she blended her artistic impulses with the techniques needed to excel? The next step loomed large in her mind, a question not just about her baking but about who she would become in the process. "Are you ready to take that leap?" she whispered to herself, knowing she had to confront far more than just her craft. The moment was nearly upon her, and now it was clear that her journey was far from over. Emma's mind raced as she reflected on Mrs. Hargrove's advice. The looming challenge wasn't merely about crafting delectable pastries but navigating the intricate dance between innovation and tradition. She found herself perched on a pivotal point, teetering between the quiet assembly of technique and the vibrant chaos of creation. What if pursuing her vision meant sacrificing the very foundation upon which she built her baking identity? With each new day, Emma committed to expanding her culinary repertoire. She began studying classical techniques, diligently practicing the foundational recipes that had once felt mundane. Armed with a stack of well-worn cookbooks, she immersed herself in the art of the perfect soufflé, the delicate intricacies of pot au choux, and the quintessential French macaroon. Each method revealed layers of discipline, ages of knowledge wrapped tightly in contrasting technique, stability versus spontaneity. Days turned into weeks as she clocked long hours in the kitchen. Her hands felt achy yet alive, capable of creating wonders with the right balance of skill and intuition. But early mornings spent whisking egg whites into frothy peaks also conjured self-doubt. Would this preparation truly make her a better baker, or would it imprison her spirit of exploration? Emma often found herself staring at the array of ingredients lined up on her countertop, battling the influence of Mrs. Hargrove's structured wisdom. The temptation to veer off script tugged at her every single time she cracked an egg or melted chocolate. While the formulas were reliable and comforting, were they limiting her boundless creativity? Every time she strayed towards improvisation, it felt exhilarating yet reckless. One evening, after an arduous day, Emma decided to take a leap. She grabbed the leftover meringue from earlier and transformed it into an unexpected lavender-infused tart. As she combined the flavors, from the floral notes of the lavender to the slight tang of fresh lemon, her heart raced with apprehension. Would this abandon lead to culinary brilliance, or simply a tragic misfire? The tart emerged golden and inviting. Nervously, Emma presented it to her family, who were her toughest critics. As they savored each bite, their eyes lit up, and Emma's heart soared. "This is incredible. You've really outdone yourself," her brother exclaimed, each word, a much-needed affirmation. As Emma relished in the positive response, a voice inside her whispered that the balance she sought was beginning to emerge. Perhaps creativity didn't need to exist in direct opposition to structure, instead, they could coexist, each enhancing the other's flavor. Yet, the ever-present uncertainty lingered. Could she continue this path without stepping too far into uncharted territory? Emboldened by the success, Emma felt a flicker of a new dream emerge, a concept that intertwined her innovative spirit with the craftsmanship she was honing. What if she held a workshop that combined traditional methods with modern flair? She envisioned inviting others to explore their own creativity in the kitchen. But would she have the confidence to execute such a bold venture? As her plans solidified, Emma approached Mrs. Hargrove for guidance again, bracing herself for the scrutiny that came with presenting a new idea. Would she receive the harsh critique she feared or the encouragement she craved? The prospect of facing Mrs. Hargrove again filled her with dread and excitement. Perhaps this was the moment to separate herself from the weight of expectation and instead express her individual journey. The decision was imperative. How would she navigate the delicate balance of honoring technique while extending an invitation to creativity? Could she truly rally both the traditional and the innovative into a cohesive workshop that embodied all she learned? Taking a deep breath, Emma steeled herself for what was next. She understood now that the journey of self-discovery was just as crucial as the craft she sought to master. In reaching out to others, she might also discover more about her own resilient spirit. What would Mrs. Hargrove's response be? Would it lead to an unexpected partnership, or could it shatter her newfound ambitions? Emma clenched her fists, feeling her heart quicken as she resolved to find out. The moment of truth was fast approaching, and bravery had never felt so imperative. Emma stood in front of her mirror, catching a glimpse of the confident young woman she had become. The past months had transformed her from the timid girl who once felt overshadowed by grief and judgment into a resilient force, igniting her passion for baking. Today was not merely about piecing together past lessons, it was the day she finally shared her new vision with Mrs. Hargrove, a workshop that melded tradition with innovation. With her ideas well organized and her enthusiasm bubbling, Emma stepped into the local bakery where Mrs. Hargrove worked. A mix of excitement and dread coursed through her veins, but she felt prepared. The promise of her concept shone brightly, and she was eager to present it. "Mrs. Hargrove," Emma began, her voice steady. "May I share a new initiative I've been working on?" The older woman looked up from her task, arms crossed, but her demeanor softened slightly by intrigue. "I'm listening, Emma. What is it?" With a deep breath, Emma unveiled her vision for the workshop, a space where aspiring bakers could explore foundational techniques while also experimenting with their creativity. She illustrated how combining elements would empower others to discover their unique baking identities, just as she had. As each word flowed, excitement replaced former hesitation. Emma felt empowered by her growing competence and resolve. "I want to create a community," Emma concluded, looking directly into Mrs. Hargrove's eyes. "One where knowledge is shared freely, where we build off each other's strengths and creativity." Mrs. Hargrove regarded her thoughtfully. "That's quite an ambition, Emma. A balancing act between tradition and innovation isn't for everyone." "Exactly," Emma replied, her words resonating with growing confidence. "But I believe that we can both honor what has come before while inviting new ideas. We can foster a culture of inclusivity that celebrates everyone's journey." A beat passed before Mrs. Hargrove's lips curved into a smile. "You've certainly grown since we first met. You've faced up to challenges and recognized your strengths. It's commendable that you want to inspire others as well." The warmth of affirmation surged inside Emma. "Would you consider collaborating? Your expertise would be invaluable, and together we could show that both creativity and structure have their place." A flicker of contemplation passed over Mrs. Hargrove's features. "It's not customary for me to partner. My methods have always leaned into the classical side of baking. But perhaps," she mused, "exploring fresh perspectives could breathe life into traditional practices." Emma felt her heart race. "So you're open to the idea?" "Yes, I think it's worth a try," Mrs. Hargrove stated, a new light in her gaze. "Let us begin with a joint workshop, see how the community responds. If it resonates, perhaps we can explore broader avenues." The realization sank in. Emma had successfully transformed a seed of doubt into an opportunity. Her journey was not completed by standing beneath the shadows of her past, but by stepping into the spotlight of collaboration. As Mrs. Hargrove extended her hand in agreement, Emma grasped it firmly, feeling the connection solidify a new chapter. In the days that followed, excitement enveloped Emma. The workshop planning unfurled like the layers of a freshly baked puff pastry. Posters dangled from the bakery windows, vibrant details promising community engagements emerged, and word blossomed through every home in town. The invigorating thrill of purpose drove her, and she witnessed the very essence of her aspirations materializing. Finally, on the day of the workshop, an array of curious faces gathered, a tapestry woven from supporting neighbors, families, and even former skeptics. As Emma stood before them, she felt a rush of pride wash over her. The fear that had once held her back was eclipsed by the joy of creating an inclusive space, one where laughter and flower dust mingled in the air. "Welcome, everyone." Emma started, her voice ringing with assurance. "Today, we'll explore both time-honored techniques and creative twists. Together, we'll not only bake, we'll share experiences, and I hope to awaken your passion for this art." The workshop unfolded beautifully. Flower flew, laughter echoed, and as participants began crafting their own masterpieces, Emma could see the spirit of transformation taking hold not just in the culinary creations, but within the hearts and minds of everyone present. Each cookie and cupcake symbolized a triumph over uncertainty, a celebration of community, and a promise of collaboration. As the sun began to set, casting warm hues across the jubilant scene, Emma reflected on the distance she had traveled. She felt a wave of fulfillment wash over her, recognizing the irrevocable change within herself. She was no longer the scared child in an abandoned farmhouse. She had forged a path towards self-discovery, acknowledging the worth of her contributions while uplifting others along the way. This was her life now, alive with purpose, community, and endless possibilities. The experience was more than she had imagined. Not only had she conquered her previous fears, but she also had encouraged others to champion their dreams. Emma had evolved into a leader, not shying away from responsibility, but embracing it wholeheartedly. In that moment, she knew her journey was just beginning, and she was ready to face whatever came next with solid confidence and unshakable resolve. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this resolution. You need to support this journey of personal growth, and only true fans of overcoming stories understand the importance of acting now. Don't wait even one more second to share.